Hi, my name is Erin Haynes. I'm a cinematographer and camerawoman.
Hello, I'm Chris Stafford, and you're listening to Art, the podcast where we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. This is Season 2, Episode 16. My guest this week is the American cinematographer Erin Haynes, who is making her way in an industry that she believes has a long way to go to increase diversity amongst its crews. Erin was born in New Orleans in 1999, one of two daughters to Denise and Joe Haynes. She grew up in the 7th Ward of a complex city as a young black woman, mindful of the challenges facing minorities. Erin attended Cabrini High School in the shadow of New Orleans Museum of Art, where she was drawn to English literature, writing, art, and film. She developed a talent as a sketch artist, and at Loyola University, she studied mass communications, journalism, and French. Erin describes herself as a shy, nerdy kid who surprised everyone by leaving the Big Easy for the Big Apple in pursuit of modelling opportunities, something she is still open to today alongside her day job. Her immersion in fashion modelling led to an interest in photography and filmmaking. She prefers film that makes you think, like psychological thrillers and horror. Her inspiration in filmmaking came when she discovered Greta Gerwig's work in the 2017 comedy romance Lady Bird and Christopher Nolan's 2014 sci-fi adventure Interstellar, which captured her imagination for its visuals and soundtrack. Erin's career path has so far led to being a second camera assistant, FAAA drone pilot, an emerging Steadicam and underwater camera operator at the age of 24. She says, "I want to be a complete master of the camera." Erin's ambitions align with her mission to champion the need for diversity, visibility, and possibilities for women of colour in the film industry. Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Well, we like to cover as many different corners of the world of visual arts as we possibly can, and also age groups too. And, you and I were talking last week and recognizing, that you're at the beginning of your career. But I think that is just as important to tell your story, not just where you came from, but what your expectations are of the industry, which is very competitive, as we know. So I will rewind in a moment to where it all began, Erin. But I also want to hear what projects you're working on right now.
So, in regards to projects that I'm working on, I'm actually starting to think about things that I'm interested in shooting. I was on set this past weekend, and I just felt very inspired by the project that we were working on. I was not the cinematographer on that project, but I had the opportunity to work with someone that I admire very much, and he wanted to bring me along for the day. But in regards to what I want to make, one of the things that I do is I'm a certified drone operator. So I would love to really exercise my specialty skills to try to create different pieces of art. So in regards to drones, I would love to capture beautiful aerial cinematography and see what I can do with something like that.
And you're also quite handy with the Steadicam, I know. I've seen some great pictures of you with a Steadicam.
Yeah, I am learning Steadicam right now. A really great friend of mine, her name is Megan Massour. She is a Steadicam operator, and she is actually the first female Steadicam operator I have ever met. But when I met Megan, we immediately hit it off, and I immediately just had such a gravitation towards the Steadicam because I'm very much interested in camera movement. I think you can do a lot of interesting things with that. I've seen it on the other side of the lens. I actually started my career professionally as a fashion model, and I would always look at what these camera guys were doing. And maybe once or twice, that's when I saw a Steadicam, and it's kind of just been stuck in my brain ever since. And when I had the chance to finally wear the rig and fly the sled, I was like, yeah, I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
I know it's pretty cool, isn't it? What cameras can do these days. We look back historically, at the limitations that we had, and now the movement and the flowing, the smoothness of the movement of cameras too, from drones to Steadicams and beyond. It's pretty awesome, and it's an exciting time to be learning the trade, I would think, because I want to talk about this more, about the diversity in the industry, the visibility of women in the business. But I think for you now, the doors are opening, and unlike anything they were in the past, even though women have a long way to go, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So in regards to the diversity on set, I guess I really became aware of diversity on sets when I was in high school. I took a film studies class during my senior year, and my teacher only showed us films that were created, produced, or directed by women. And she did so because she wanted us to learn that not a lot of women are in film, especially not a lot of women that are minorities are in film. And there's like a lot of reasons why, but that class stuck with me for years until I eventually had the opportunity to see for myself. And when I did walk into my first professional studio film set, I knew immediately that once I walked into the room, for the first time in my life, I felt, wow, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to do with my life. And I was instantly gravitated towards the camera department. But when I looked around the room, I noticed there was a trend in the crew, even in the cast. It was a room that was filled predominantly with white men. So what I had learned years ago came into full circle, and my purpose was found in that moment. I said, this isn't fair, and I'm going to do something about it.
Do you feel you're on something of a mission then, Erin?
I absolutely feel as though I'm on a mission. My whole incentive for being in this industry at all is because I want more diversity on sets, not just, Black people, all kinds of people, because I believe that everyone deserves the right to tell a story. No story is better than the other one. We are all going through this thing called life. So we all have something to say, something to share, but what we end up getting is just the same kind of stories being told over and over and over again, because it's the same kind of people that are in power, the same kind of people that are hiring each other, and a gigantic echo chamber has formed, making it virtually impossible for anyone else that might, look a little bit different or come from a different background. We don't really have much of a chance. So we really have to fight our way through on these sets and have our stories be told.
And you had mentioned to me how much you admire the work of Chris Wareggi and Gretchen Wharton, both of whom have been on the show, and you're a friend of Chris's too. What is it about the work that they're doing? It seems so vital to you and your career.
So when I made the decision to come into the film industry, my immediate thought was, I wonder if I'm going to find somebody else that looks like me, that has a similar goal to me, or at least does do what I want to do, which is work in the camera department and be a cinematographer. And I remember, I'm from New Orleans, by the way, but I started off my journey in New Orleans, and I was on the set of Anthony Mackie's Twisted Metal. And I remember I was working in production at the time, but I walked into the AD trailer, and I'll never forget this. The AD, her name is Kylie Swanson. She told me, oh, hey, my friend she just went to this event that's in New York, and I think it was revolving something around Panavision. And I was like, what was that? So I looked at the picture and I saw a group of all of these Black camera women. And in the picture, I saw Chris. And ever since then, I was just like, I have to figure out who this is. So I did a lot of research and I reached out to her. And I eventually got to meet Chris when I flew up here to New York because we had an opportunity to go learn at Kodak. And I really got to see what Chris was pushing for, which is exactly what I'm pushing for. She wants more visibility. She wants more Black women to have a chance in this industry because in comparison to the amount of people that are within the camera union and how many Black women make up that camera union, the numbers is truly staggering. And, you surround yourself with people that have similar goals to you, but she's also just a wonderful human being. So I really admire what she's doing. She is pretty much spearheading, this movement to get more Black women involved on film sets, specifically in the camera department.
So one of your obviously premier inspirations in your career, but let's rewind to where it all began for you. As you said, you were born in New Orleans in 1999. What were those early days like for you? You have one sister. So what was it like growing up in New Orleans, which is known for being a pretty tough city?
I would say New Orleans is known for a lot of things. I think the number one thing that it is known for is its illustrious culture, its music, its art. So it's a very creative environment to grow up in. I'm actually a sketch artist. I have been a sketch artist pretty much since I could pick up a pencil. I was always very drawn to art as a child. I used to sit in front of the TV and I would draw like the cartoon characters. And I remember my mom telling me the first time that she realized that I was an artist was when she saw just a few scrappings of my drawings that I might have left on the floor. She found them somewhere, and then my schools that I went to eventually took notice, and I was involved in the gifted art programs. So I was always very in tune with my creative side growing up.
Did you inherit any of that? Were your parents at all creative in that sense?
So my parents are not creative, but I do come from a creative family. I would say the only other person that could draw is my Uncle George. He is the only other artist in the family, and that is actually our bonding point. He and I used to draw all of the time back when I lived in New Orleans. But in regards to the rest of my family, I have a few cousins that also work in the industry. One is transitioning from being a doctor into a writer and a director. The other is a producer and a global marketer. I have a musician. I have actors, actresses. So if you put us all together in one room, we could probably create a movie, which is what we want to do anyway. We just have to find the time to do it. But the Haynes movie, it's coming. It's coming.
Multi-talented family by the sounds of things. So when you were small, though, what was piquing your interest apart from sketching? What other things did you get up to as a child?
Oh, I was very much involved with a lot of self-discovery and a lot of creativity. I was a very shy child and very quiet. I just stuck to myself. I'm an introverted person, so it makes a lot of sense. But I always was alone in some capacity, and it gave me time to really explore my interests. So if I wasn't drawing, I was listening to music or I was getting into fashion and looking at different clothes and designs and collaging different things. I always had my hands in something. I was never doing nothing. And of course, reading and writing. Um, I always was just flexing my creative muscle, not because I felt like I had to, but I couldn't really see myself doing anything. I absolutely repel sports. Like for whatever reason, I can't catch a ball and throw it for my life, but I am very, very, very great at the creative language arts. That is where my dojo is, and I'm fine with it.
I was just thinking of you with your Steadicam work. If you would get on those, is it the Segway, the two wheels, and would that be too much? And I know watching some of these camera operators, it really adds to your versatility. Of course, if you could do that, is that something that would you go on those wheels?
Oh, absolutely. I actually am learning the wheels as well. So I am, other than being a cinematographer, I am building myself to be a camera operator. I think being a camera operator, you feel so woven into a story because you are right there with the actors. You are right in the middle of, you're just in the thick of it. And to have the opportunity to capture, you know, what is this scene that is beautifully unfolding before you. I can't think of anywhere else that I would literally want to be on a set. And to also carry the hat of being the cinematographer is, oh my God, that's a dream in itself. But yes, I definitely see myself, using the wheels. Even though I'm not necessarily drawn to sports, I am very athletic. In fact, I think you have to be if you are in the film industry because it is just it can be very physically taxing. And I constantly have to exercise my body to stay strong because I'm constantly picking up heavy cameras or heavy gear. A Steadicam can weigh almost 100 pounds. So I have to always make sure that I can basically withstand the weight. And so I've become quite athletic. My creative side is strong, but I had to get my body strong too. Still not good at sports though, but I'm trying. I'm trying.
Well, it's a different kind of fitness, but a very necessary one. I've seen some of the exercises that Steadicam operators do to keep their core strong, their upper body strong, and then the legs
Oh,
to
absolutely.
be working for long hours. Would you remember when you first picked up a camera?
Do I remember when I first picked up a camera? I had to be very, 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 very young when I first picked up a camera. I don't think that I remember the earliest moment that I picked one up, but I would say when I began to pick them up a lot more frequently was in high school. My parents had gifted me, I think it was a Canon DSLR. I think it was maybe an EOS 5 or it was one. I know for sure it was the DSLR, and I was playing a lot with that, and it kind of just grew more and more, especially when I got into college. And well, now here we are, picking up big film cameras.
Yeah. Were you not into photography as a child? Did you go around taking pictures, or were you watching films that would inspire you? What was the earliest sort of catalyst for that interest?
Oh, I was very much drawn to photography from a very young age. I think I mentioned earlier I was either collaging or constantly looking into fashion magazines. So I was always looking at pictures, even when I was a child. Even let's say if I went to like a pediatrician, I was more often than not reading the magazine that was while I was sitting in the waiting room. So fashion magazines specifically really caught my eye, and also National Geographic magazines caught my eye. I think the earliest moment when I realized that I was interested in photography and cinematography was probably when I was in school in history class. Interestingly, I was very much intrigued by Egyptology, and learning about ancient Egypt. And I loved watching the documentaries of the archaeologists and the filmmakers uncovering life from back then, and the images that were on the screen, and then having our teacher pass around a National Geographic magazine so we could see a more high resolution photograph. I was hooked. I was like, this is everything to me. I'm so interested in this. And it kind of just grew from there. I would say I knew for sure that was photographs, but I knew for sure that cinematography caught my eye when I was maybe around 14 years old. And I was sitting in the theater with some friends of mine at the time, and we went to go see Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. And at least in my generation, when people go to the mall or they go to the cinema, they're not actually going there to do what those places. They're not actually going there for the purpose of those places. They're going there just to hang out and talk. So while my friends were being like annoying teenagers and kind of whispering throughout the movie, I was completely just engrossed by what I was watching. I would say Interstellar was probably the film that made me want to be a filmmaker, because not only was it the score, the music by Hans Zimmer that caught my attention, it was the visuals. And that was pretty much like the first inkling where I was like, cinematography, this is cool. Yeah, this is cool. I like that.
Did you have any doubt that you could do it then? Did you have role models or mentors, teachers that were encouraging you and saying, you may not see many young Black women on set, but you can do it?
So the moment that first moment when I started to recognize, I wasn't just watching a movie just to watch a movie. I was watching a movie because I was looking for the cinematography or looking for something that captured my eye. At that point, it was just like an interest. I didn't actually think it could be a job. I couldn't really conceptualize that there are people behind the creation of the visual images that are on a screen. I knew what a director was, I knew what a cinematographer was, and I knew what an actor was. And that was about it. I didn't realize that it took teams of people to make a movie. So I didn't really have like anyone kind of telling me, this is something that you could do too, because I didn't think it was possible. The moment I sort of kind of thought it was possible, during this time period, I was really getting into YouTube. And I was watching these YouTubers create a video blog or a vlog, and they were uploading their day or showing something interesting. And it just made everything seem a lot more tangible, because you can see the behind the scenes of how a video is created. There's a particular YouTuber that really inspired me, and he's actually here in New York. His name is Casey Neistat. And he would daily vlog every day. But the thing that made Casey different from everyone else is that he wanted to be a filmmaker, and he wanted to make his videos look like mini movies. Whereas, YouTube was graduating from just, cat videos and skateboard videos. And you have someone trying to create a somewhat professional grade style video and making it very cinematic and his own mini movie every day for years. And I was just like, wow, so you can pick up a camera and create something beautiful and tell a beautiful story with it, and that can be your career, because it is his career. And that was the moment when I was like, oh, this looks like something that I can do too. I still wasn't thinking, like a whole Hollywood career, but at that moment I was like, yeah, you can film, you can make film a career. So I was never discouraged at that point in my life.
During your high school years, where did you go to high school, by the way, Erin?
I went to Cabrini High School in New Orleans.
And was there any opportunity there to explore filmmaking?
So interestingly, um, other than the film studies class, we actually had to create our own film. And I ended up doing a complete solo project. And I made mine a silent film because I was too intimidated to tackle on audio. And I also wanted to challenge myself by making a silent film because it would be strictly focused on the visuals. But other than that, I mentioned earlier that I was very much into reading and writing. So I've always been a very good writer. I would honestly credit my English teachers for shaping me into who I am today, because they were the people that exposed me to literature and art and film. We would constantly dissect film and different forms of media while we were in high school. I would write almost 10-page papers pretty much either every day or every other day. Cabrini really, they really wanted to make sure that we were great communicators and great storytellers and great writers, and we can put our thoughts onto pen and paper, but also they wanted us to make sure that we could dissect whatever is in front of us. So I always found myself in those classes where I was challenged, in those advanced placement classes where I was challenged to, look at a film deeper than just pure entertainment.
And so, who was your inspiration then, in terms of women, particularly in the industry? Who were you looking at? Who were you following?
Women in the industry that I was looking at. I know exactly the answer to this question. So I would say Greta Gerwig, because it was in that film studies course where my teacher only showed us films by women. That film, her film Lady Bird, that stars Saoirse Ronan, that was the first time I'd ever seen that film. I think it actually came out that year. And I remember how eerily similar Lady Bird story was to mine. So Lady Bird is basically looking at the life of a 17 turning 18-year-old who is in her senior year of high school and, basically on her path to adulthood. It's a coming of age film. So she was going to Catholic school. I was going to Catholic school. The bickering with her siblings and her parents and how scary it was to go to college. I completely resonated with that film 100% because I saw myself in it. And I think Greta has a really great gift for capturing people and moments and places in people's lives truthfully for what it is. Hollywood tends to be very glossy, very polished. Even in like the goriest of films, there's always like a sexiness attached to it, but I didn't feel that at all from from Lady Bird. I felt this is a story that I truly believe is real because I'm literally living it. And I've appreciated Greta and her work ever since.
Would this be the turning point for you to decide on your career pathway then? And when you went to university, you went to Loyola University in New Orleans, but you did mass communications there and journalism and French. So was filmmaking, cinematography, being a camera operator, those kind of things in the back of your mind whilst you were doing that?
Yeah, so those kinds of things were definitely in the back of my mind. During that time, I just knew I had a lot of interest. And one thing that I knew what I didn't want to do, but I still didn't have a clear idea of what I knew for sure, what I wanted to do with my life. I knew that I was great at writing. I knew that I loved photography. I knew that I loved TV production and film production, and I loved cinematography. So I had all of these things. And I think the thing that I was afraid of most is that I didn't want to choose a degree path that would kind of pigeonhole me and I'm stuck doing that one thing. I wanted to be a storyteller of all kinds. It doesn't matter what platform I'm on. I can be on Instagram, or I can be in the New York Times, or I could be, producing a film for Universal Studios. Doesn't matter where I am, I can tell a story very well. So that is why I chose mass communication. This point in time, I knew that filmmaking could be a job. I still didn't know how to make it your job. And I also didn't know the intricacies of what the camera department looked like. At that point, I knew that the camera department existed. I just didn't know the specificities of each role and what you can do within them. So that's why I chose mass communication. As for French, all my life, I've loved Paris, France, and I knew like if there is a place that I was going to live and die, it's going to be Paris. I love New York. I love it so much. This is second to Paris, but I learned French so I could speak the language and be and be with my people in Paris.
So where did the modeling opportunities come along then?
So for modeling, I was always very interested in fashion. I was interested in clothes, and I was just like, wow, getting dressed is my favorite part of my day because I could become any character that I want to be. But I would say one of the biggest spearheads for that was I was just a very shy child. And I struggled a lot with accepting my height. I'm 5'11", by the way. I was just a very geeky, nerdy, tall, skinny kid growing up. So, I stuck out when I didn't want to stick out, and I didn't have anyone around me that looked like me physically. So it was, there was just it was just like a tough upbringing in that regard. I didn't like sports. I didn't play basketball. So I was just trying to find my place in life. And I knew I liked fashion, and for modeling, I always would tell my mom after watching shows like America's Next Top Model or Project Runway, I would say, Mom, I would love a chance to model, which was, just like a cry for a mom. I would love to be surrounded by people that I can relate to. But she never really knew how to get me involved in that. No one in my family had ever done it before. So she said, well, if you want to do something like that, then you have to do a lot of research and then figure it out. So that's exactly what I did. I just did a lot of research, and I found a model and talent academy that taught modeling and acting. Is called Launch Model and Talent. It's no longer, it doesn't exist anymore, but at the time, that's what it was. And it had amazing reviews. So one afternoon, my mom and I drove down there, and, we started talking to the people of the academy, and they immediately saw, they were like, yeah, she can definitely model. But the interesting thing that happened during this time, Launch had this annual competition that they were a part of called the Industry Network. And every year they would take a small group of students to Los Angeles to compete with other talent academies in front of the biggest modeling and acting agencies in the world. And somehow, some way, I was one of the few in the academy that was selected, even though I had just started. And I was able to go to Los Angeles and meet these incredible agents, and I did really well. I did really, really well. So I was full blown into fashion at that point. That was really the beginning of my career in entertainment, and I was 17 at the time.
How long did you do that for?
So I still model today, but I would say I haven't modeled in quite a few years. The last thing that I did, I had the opportunity to be mentored by supermodel Coco Rocha for a couple of days up here in New York. And she basically was a part of a photo shoot that I did. And I haven't really stepped in front of a lens truthfully since then. But since moving to New York, I said, it's time to get that ball rolling again. Because what I really want is to be a complete master of the camera. I think it's important as a cinematographer that I know not only what is happening, within my team and even the other departments that are around me, but also what it's like for the talent. And I have this really unique perspective in that I know what life is like in front of the lens, and I know, how to capture images beautifully, because you have to have kind of this silent communication between you and the person behind the camera. So I just want to mash those two worlds together now.
So you can see yourself doing more fashion modeling then if you just pursue that a little bit more. Do you have an agent?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have an agent right now. I kind of just left all of that in the past once I really flew myself behind a camera. But I have these crazy visions of myself where, I am, let's say I'm doing Steadicam for a runway show. A lot of Steadicam operators that I know do a lot of fashion shoots, which is that's like one of the biggest things that's drawing me to Steadicam, which is to have that opportunity to work on a lot of fashion shoots. But I just keep having this vision of myself just wearing this Steadicam and, capturing the models doing their poses. And then they're like, okay, great, you need to take that off because now it's your turn. And I jump in front of the lens. But that's just like that's like a fever dream that I'm having in my head. It could happen one day, but I think that would be a little crazy.
So where do you want to see your career going right now then?
Right now, in this very moment, I would love to be a part of just get on more shoots. Because I'm still, I'm like we mentioned earlier, I'm in the very beginning stage of my career. So I'm still trying to understand how everything works. I am at this moment, I'm a second AC, so a second assistant camera. And I'm the person that is responsible for, slating each take. So that famous clapboard that you would see in behind the scene videos of movies or TV shows or music videos or whatever, that is where I stand. And I also work as a prep technician at a rental house. But I just want to continue to just learn as much as I possibly can and grow. I also want to challenge myself to take on more roles as an operator and, of course, to shoot, to film as much as I possibly can. So that is where I am. If I had to sum it up, to grow and learn and absorb as much as I possibly can.
Aside from fashion and enjoying the fashion shoots, what genre are you drawn to and what format?
So I would say my favorite type of film to watch are films that make me think. So I do enjoy psychological thrillers. I do enjoy horror films because there is something about, not being able to fully grasp what's happening, and you have to think think it out as the story is developing. That is just the most interesting thing to me. I hate when I'm watching a film and I can predict everything that's going to happen before it's going to happen. There's nothing interesting about that. I want something to challenge me. I want something to electrify me, electrify every nerve in my body. Interestingly, one of my favorite films is a 2016 film called Nerve that stars Emma Roberts, and is basically about this teenage girl that had a very quiet life, and she never really put herself out there. And she was a photographer, interestingly, but her friends had dared her to join this crazy game where you can either watch people do like these crazy dares, or you can be one of the people that performs the dare. And it was crazy. I remember watching that in the movie theater, and one of the dares that they had to do was drive a motorcycle blindfolded at 60 miles per hour in New York City. And I was sweating in that movie theater when I first saw it. And that was one of the films that kind of got me to push myself into the spotlight, because nothing happens in your comfort zone. I think that was one of the last films that I saw before I actually bit the bullet and started modeling, and I started putting myself out there more. So it did what it was supposed to do. It definitely influenced me and got me to think.
You mentioned how much you enjoyed writing. Does screenwriting appeal to you?
Screenwriting does appeal to me. I was actually having a talk with my friend the other day. He and I met on my very first film set that I had ever worked on as a crew member. He was one of the first people that I ever met, and we've been pretty much inseparable ever since. But he just directed his own film, and he was telling me about the writing process, and most recently about the directing process. And I was like, wow, that is so intriguing. I've always seen myself being able to write, but the more and more that, I get on set and I hear stories from my friends about what the process are like, or even my family as they're writing, I'm like, wow, I can probably sink my teeth into this. I know how to write real life journalistic style stories, but what is there stopping me from writing a narrative story and then maybe directing it? One of my favorite people, one of my inspirations, she is a director and also a director of photography. Her name is Chloe Weaver, and she's awesome. And I'm just kind of watching her, like, developing herself into a director. I'm not sure how much Chloe is involved with the writing process, but it is possible. Even in a career that seemingly is putting people in a box or keeping people out, I just shake my head at that. And you can do anything. Anything that you put your mind to. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter who you are. You can figure out a way and make it happen. There is no way that I thought that I would be sitting here today speaking about the things that I'm thinking about. If you would have met me, back when I was a kid, you would have never imagined that this is who I would have become. So yeah, I can see myself screenwriting. I can see myself doing anything I set my mind to.
What would you say have been the obstacles to this path so far, Erin? Have you experienced any prejudices in the industry?
Oh, yes. I would say trying to navigate this field as a not only a woman but a woman of color, it can be difficult because you're surrounded by people that don't necessarily look like you, and they could, I'm not saying with a definite yes, but they could favor the people that they can directly relate to. So I usually am working with a lot of guys, specifically a lot of white guys. So I have always told myself I want to learn absolutely everything, not only to perform as a great camera woman, but also to perform as an amazing team player. I think being a team player means more than being a great camera woman. I can still be stellar at that, but filmmaking is really, it's not even about the technology, about everything. I think it's mostly about the people. It really is about the people at the end of the day. And I would say the hardest thing is just being able to kind of run with these guys and constantly proving myself like I can do this too. I can do this too. That's why you see me throwing myself into so much different things, not only because I'm interested in them, but I learned drones and Steadicam and underwater camera operation, and everything that I'm getting myself involved in is because I want to be able to speak the language. I want people to respect me just as they would, their peer that they enjoy working with the most, because I don't really see a difference between me and them. So just being able to keep up and to speak their language and to, you know, hold my ground and feel very deserving to be in that room because I've worked hard to be in that room. And I will continue to work hard to be in that room.
Have you noticed a shift in acceptability when you push these doors open? Are you finding yourself welcomed more now that you have some experience and your name is getting around?
I would say yes and also no. I'm saying yes because people are beginning to recognize me as a camera woman and as a cinematographer, and the support that I'm getting, especially from people online and as they're watching my journey unfold on social media, specifically on Instagram, the support has been overwhelming, and it makes me smile and beam because I'm inspiring other people that look like me, that they're like, wow, I can do this too because she's doing it. But sometimes you're faced with people, I don't know absolutely everything right now, and that's okay. I think I'm going to be a student at this for the rest of my career because there's just so much to learn in film that it's almost too much to learn. But sometimes, you could be surrounded by people that might stick their nose up because they don't think that you have enough experience, or you might get one thing wrong when being asked to grab something or work something or build something on a film set, and you may not have that experience. You might stumble your way through it, and they may not be as accepting. But I'm going to be challenged throughout the rest of my career and in my life, and I take pride in that I'm still learning and growing. It's a very humbling experience, but I try not to focus my attention on them too much because I know I'm working really hard to be able to keep up with everything.
So Erin Hayes is no longer that shy, nerdy kid. What is she now, Erin? Is she an ambitious and determined young woman?
Absolutely, she is. She is a woman that is on a path of discovery. I would say that I always was this very ambitious, driven, very studious, focused person. But I was so shy and so insecure when I was younger. I really didn't have the chance to look into myself in that way. I was always looking at other things or other people or other art that inspired me. I never really looked within. But I would say, as I'm continuing down this career path, I am discovering myself. I feel like I've opened the book on myself and I'm reading it. I know people say that you write your own story, which I absolutely believe that we do. We do write our own stories, but I'm in the portion of the book where I'm reading the pages that were already written, but they were hidden from me back then. I'm reading about who I was, and it's like, wow, I had a pretty solid foundation thanks to my parents and my family. And that very strong foundation has given me the power to continue to write this journey that I'm on now.
And with this is coming self-confidence then. Do your parents see a developing young woman that they didn't recognize as a child?
Oh, absolutely. That famous teacher, that very famous teacher that pretty much changed the trajectory of my life, that film studies teacher, her name is Michelle Forche. She was also one of my English teachers in high school. But one thing that she said to me that I'll never forget is that she never knows what I'm going to do next. And I would say that is the epitome of who I am and how people's reactions when they see what I'm doing, especially my parents. My parents have always been very proud of me because they know how hard I work and they know how passionate about I am about the things that I'm going after. But this confidence that I have found within myself and how I carry myself throughout the world is completely shocking to them. It really shocked them when I started modeling because I would imagine it felt like they were looking at a whole new kid. They were like, this is not the kid that we raised because she is completely different from what we remember her to be. But we were both discovering who I was in that moment, in those moments, even the very earliest days, we were discovering who I am.
So if you were to write the preface to another young woman's, a young Black woman's life before her career gets underway, what would you write in there? What would you tell them?
That's a really great question. I would probably say everything that people, this world, this society tries to define you as, you can absolutely break every barrier that they or even yourself have put you behind. There is absolutely nothing in this world that you aren't capable or deserving of achieving or having. So go after it. Absolutely go after it. Because you're magical.
And what are you most looking forward to in 2024, Erin? What projects lie ahead?
I am most looking forward to just seeing where this path takes me. I moved to New York City almost 9 months ago now. I had 9 days to get up here. And when I made that leap of faith and jumping into this, strapping myself to this crazy rocket ship that I'm on when it comes down pursuing a career in as a cinematographer and as a camera woman. I also knew that was a moment where I was just like, you are in complete control of your story. You are going to write it and build yourself to be the woman that you always have dreamed of being. So I am most excited to see who I continue to develop to be, and also where my story goes and how far I will grow throughout this path that I am on.
Well, I'm looking forward to following your journey, Erin. Exciting times ahead. And as you say, anything is possible. You can break down any barrier, self-imposed or otherwise. So the very, very best of luck with your career, Erin. And thank you for taking time to come on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Chris. This was so wonderful. And thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored by this, truly, to share this space with the women that you have had the opportunity to hear their stories. I'm blown away to be one of them. I thank you so much.
And if you scroll down the show notes accompanying this episode, you'll find a list of some of Erin's favourite women artists from across the world of visual arts. And there's also a link to Erin's Instagram account and also to ours, where you can leave your comments and questions and suggestions for guests. As always, we love to hear from you. Just look for the Art Podcast, that's Art with 2 A's. My thanks again to Erin and to you for listening. I'll be back next week with another guest from around the world of visual arts, so I do hope you'll join me then.